Well, my guest today on France 24 was the personal chef for the Obama family for years, both in Chicago and at the White House. He was also a senior advisor on U.S. nutrition policy and the executive director of First Lady Michelle Obama's campaign against child obesity. He's in Paris this week as part of a State Department culinary diplomacy program, and his name is Sam Kass. Sam, welcome.
So great to be here.
So great to have you here. So first of all, 4th of July is coming up. It's just a few days away, obviously Independence Day in the United States. And you've come here with some recipes in your pocket for Parisians. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so we started a culinary diplomacy program at the State Department to use food to engage in cultures across the world. And it's been an amazing journey for chefs all over America who've gone out over the world. So I got the lucky draw to come to Paris for the celebration and share some recipes and engage with the great food culture here. So it's been wonderful.
Now, you had such an interesting job, worked for the Obamas for years as their personal chef and at the White House. First of all, how involved is the First family in what they eat? How involved were they with you?
Oh, totally involved. I mean, obviously, food and health and nutrition is a major platform for the First Lady. And so, you know, from the garden to what we eat in the White House and then working on what children are eating all over the country, they're very engaged. Now, in terms of family dinner, after cooking for them for so long, I got to cook pretty much what I wanted, although there were some requests. But yeah, it was always a great fun.
Humor us a little. Give us some of the behind the scenes. What were some of those requests? What does President Obama call for as comfort food?
So they just like really simple food. I think everybody thinks the White House and fancy, but they're a family and it's their home. And so we always worked very hard to make sure it felt like that they weren't eating in a restaurant every night. So we would just serve one plate, you know, one meal, very balanced. You know, occasionally there'd be a pizza request or a burger for when the kids were having friends over, but never anything fancy. We saved that for the state dinners.
You mentioned the White House garden, and I know that was something very important to you and to the president. Tell us about that.
So the First Lady really wanted to use the White House as a platform to talk about health and nutrition and our food and where it comes from. And so the garden was really where we started, and it was the first thing we did. And we wanted to see how people would respond, and the response was just incredible. And it went all over the world. And so the First Lady would have kids come and help us plant and then help us harvest, and then we'd cook down at the garden with the kids to really highlight where our food comes from and how it's grown. And it was just an extraordinary experience.
Now, another thing that I know a lot of people here in the newsroom have found is quite fun is that you brewed the first White House beer.
Yeah, it was, so beer is becoming, you know, the food culture in America is changing dramatically, and beer is one of those examples of it. When I was growing up, there's probably 6 or 7 kinds of beer. Now there's thousands all over the country that people are brewing, and so we thought we'd join in the fun, and so we brewed the first ever White House beer. And in fact, no beer or liquor was ever brewed or distilled, so we were very proud of it. And it turned out it was great. We had no idea what we were doing, but it ended up tasting great, and so it's become a real tradition.
You mentioned before you were also playing a policy role, you could say, perhaps the first White House chef in the White House history, I would imagine, to play that kind of role as an advisor, working not only with Michelle Obama's program, but also just as a general nutrition advisor. Are you proud? Do you feel that Let's Move program has been a success so far? I'm
tremendously proud of the work that we did in the White House, and that's ongoing. The First Lady continues to push very hard. We've seen huge progress in our schools. We've fundamentally improved the quality of food served. We got into the junk food out of schools, which had never been done before. Companies across the country are making commitments to improve what they're serving. We're getting kids physically active. So I'm incredibly proud of the work. Now, much remains, and our youngest kids are still very unhealthy and on track to have diabetes and a number of other problems when it comes to the food and the exercise that they're getting. But we're on the right course, and the culture is really starting to shift. So I feel very good about the start that we've made.
I know was some controversy about some of the school lunches, some kids throwing them into the bin, saying that it just was inedible. Yeah. Why do you think it's so hard for Americans to change the way we eat?
Yeah, well, I think food is the deepest expression of our culture and who we are and how we understand ourselves. And so those changes are hard, and we know what we like, we know what we're used to, and to try to shift that, particularly for young people, is a challenge. And I think, you know, so we hear some high school students were complaining, and that's no surprise. They complain about math too, but that doesn't mean that we should get rid of math class. So I think we got to stay the course and keep pushing forward. We know what's good for our kids, and I think we have to put our kids' interests first before the interests of other groups and make sure that they're getting the food that they need to live healthy.
You were saying before you drew the lucky card and being able to come to Paris. France, obviously famous for its cuisine. What do you think Americans or other countries can learn from France and its food?
I think we've already learned so much from the great chefs and the great food culture in France. Where food comes from is so important. Quality ingredients being the foundation of any great meal. And that just respect for what we put into our bodies as a pillar of our culture is something that France has been doing for so long. And I think that influence has really helped us, I think, learn what that core foundation of a good, vibrant food culture is. And I think now we have some of the greatest restaurants in the world, and our food culture is evolving and growing more and more deep. And it's been great to be here. I always love coming here. There's no better place.
You know, so many of us are busy. We work. We have families. We try to cook right. We try to eat healthfully, but sometimes it's just hard.
Yep.
In a nutshell, for our viewers, what's the perfect, quick, healthy meal for you?
Oh, I think the key is keeping it simple and also having a plan. So if you just put a little time in, like on a Sunday, and plan out a little bit, even a couple of days, it makes it so much easier because then you have what you need. For me, like I like roasting some chicken and roasting some vegetables. So I'll just put any kind of vegetable, broccoli or greens or anything, broccoli rabe, and I'll just put it in the oven and put the chicken in the oven. I like the dark meat, and just roast it. And so you take it out, 2 pans, and you're done. And it's like very simple. And that's a lot of what I do now. It's just I roast everything for some reason these days.
It sounds good. Yeah. Sam Kass, a former White House chef, thank you so much for coming in to speak to us. You left the White House last year. Any regrets?
It was very hard to leave. I left, to be with my wife in New York. Just got married, so no regrets there, I'll tell you that. But it was the greatest honor and privilege to work with the President and First Lady, and I stay in close touch and will always be helping and working on these issues. So no regrets, but I left with a heavy heart.